Hey there, welcome to a moment of calm. Tonight, let's leave the stress of the day behind and dive into a peaceful story. Close your eyes, relax, and let your mind drift as we journey into a world of quiet dreams and gentle whispers. Ready? Let's begin. There was a legend, whispered across the hills and valleys of a peaceful kingdom, about a place where the sky kissed the earth, and the waters glowed softly like stars fallen from the heavens. This place, known only as the Lake of Luminous Dreams, was said to reside deep within an ancient forest, far from the cares of the world. Many had tried to find it, but only those who truly needed its peace were ever able to. The legend said that the lake held the power to reveal the quiet beauty hidden within the soul, and those who visited it would return with hearts unburdened and minds still as the night. In the small village of Ravendale, nestled between rolling green hills and a sparkling river, there lived a woman named Aveline. She was known for her gentle nature and her love for tending the village's herb gardens, creating soothing teas and potions for the people around her. Aveline had always been a source of calm for others, her hands steady and her words full of comfort. But lately, she had felt the weight of her own worries pressing down on her, as if the peaceful world she had built was slowly slipping from her grasp. It wasn't that anything dramatic had happened. No great tragedy, no sudden loss. It was something subtler, something that whispered at the edges of her mind in the quiet hours of the night. A restlessness, a sense of something incomplete, had crept into her life. As she lay in bed, listening to the rustling of the trees outside her window, her thoughts would spiral, chasing one another in circles. She longed for a sense of stillness, but it eluded her. One evening, as Aveline walked by the river that bordered the village, she noticed an old traveler sitting by the water's edge. His face was lined with age, his hair silver like the moonlight, and his eyes twinkled with the wisdom of many years. He watched the river flow, his expression peaceful, as if he could hear the quiet song of the water that most people missed. Aveline approached him slowly, her curiosity piqued by the serenity that seemed to surround him. "Good evening," she said softly. The old man looked up and smiled, his eyes kind. "Good evening, my dear. You seem troubled. What brings you to the river tonight?" Aveline hesitated, surprised by his perceptiveness. "I suppose I'm looking for peace. I've felt restless lately, and I don't know why." The old man nodded thoughtfully, his gaze returning to the river. "Ah, the search for peace. It's a journey many embark upon, but few understand. Sometimes peace is not something you find, but something you uncover within yourself." Aveline sat down beside him, the cool air wrapping around her like a soft cloak. "I've tried to find that stillness," she said quietly. "I've tried to quiet my mind, but it's like chasing the wind. The more I reach for it, the farther away it feels." The old man smiled gently. "Then perhaps you are looking in the wrong place." Aveline tilted her head, confused. "What do you mean?" He turned his eyes to the darkening sky where the first stars were beginning to appear. "There is a place, deep within the forest, where the waters glow and the air hums with the energy of forgotten dreams. It is called the Lake of Luminous Dreams. It is said that those who find it can see the reflection of their own soul in its waters. Many search for it, but only those who are truly ready to let go of their burdens can find it." Aveline had heard whispers of the lake before, but she had always thought it was just a story, a myth passed down through the ages. "Do you really believe it exists?" The old man chuckled softly, a sound like the rustling of leaves. "I do, for I have seen it myself. Long ago, when I was young and full of restlessness, I stumbled upon the lake by chance. It changed me, not in a grand, dramatic way, but in a quiet, lasting way. The kind of change that feels like a deep sigh after holding your breath for too long." Aveline's heart quickened. Could this be the answer she had been seeking? A place where she could finally find the peace that had eluded her for so long? "How do I find it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The old man's smile deepened. "The lake cannot be found by those who search for it. You must let go of your need to find it, and instead, let it find you." Aveline frowned, unsure of how to follow such cryptic advice. "But how do I—" "Begin by walking into the forest at dawn," the old man interrupted gently, "and walk with no purpose other than to listen. The forest will guide you if you are open to its whispers." With that, the old man rose slowly, his movements deliberate and graceful despite his age. He gave Aveline one last kind smile before walking away, disappearing into the twilight as if he had never been there at all. That night, Aveline lay awake, her mind swirling with thoughts of the lake and the old man's words. The idea of walking into the forest without a clear destination felt strange to her. She had always been someone who sought answers, who looked for solutions. But something about the man's words resonated deep within her, stirring a quiet hope she hadn't felt in a long time. The next morning, just as the first light of dawn began to creep over the horizon, Aveline set out. She walked toward the edge of the village, where the dense trees of the forest stood like ancient sentinels. The morning air was cool, and the scent of pine and earth filled her lungs as she stepped onto the narrow path that led into the woods. At first, she walked with purpose, her steps steady as she followed the winding trail. But as the minutes passed, she began to slow, remembering the old man's advice. Walk with no purpose other than to listen. She paused, closing her eyes, and let the sounds of the forest wash over her. The rustle of leaves in the breeze, the distant call of a bird, the gentle creak of tree branches swaying in the wind. It was as if the forest itself was breathing, a living, ancient presence that surrounded her. As she opened her eyes and began to walk again, she noticed something strange. The path ahead seemed to shift, almost imperceptibly, as if the trees were guiding her toward a different direction. She hesitated for a moment, then decided to trust the feeling. She stepped off the path and into the dense undergrowth, letting her instincts guide her. The deeper she went into the forest, the more the world around her seemed to change. The light grew softer, the air warmer, and a quiet sense of anticipation filled her chest. The trees here were taller, their trunks thick with moss, and their branches stretched high above, forming a canopy that filtered the sunlight into a soft, golden glow. Hours passed as she walked, but Aveline felt no weariness, no sense of time slipping away. The forest seemed to cradle her in its arms, and for the first time in what felt like years, her mind was quiet. The restless thoughts that had plagued her for so long were gone, replaced by a gentle sense of calm. And then, just as the sun began to dip low in the sky, she saw it. Through a break in the trees, a clearing appeared before her, and at the center of the clearing was the lake. It was unlike anything she had ever seen. The waters were perfectly still, their surface shimmering with a soft, ethereal light. It was as if the stars had fallen from the sky and settled into the water, their glow casting a gentle radiance across the clearing. Aveline stood at the edge of the lake, her breath catching in her throat. The air around her felt different, thicker, heavier with the weight of something ancient and powerful. She knelt down by the water's edge and gazed into its depths. At first, all she saw was her own reflection, her face lit by the soft glow of the water. But as she continued to watch, something began to change. The reflection blurred, and the waters shimmered, revealing something deeper, something hidden beneath the surface. Images began to appear, faint at first, but growing clearer as she focused. She saw herself as a child, running through the fields near her home, her laughter echoing through the air. She saw herself as a young woman, full of hope and dreams, standing by the river with her friends. And then she saw herself now, sitting by the lake, her heart heavy with worries she had carried for too long. The images shifted again, and this time she saw something else, something quieter, more profound. She saw herself standing still, her face relaxed, her heart open. The burdens she had carried for so long were gone, replaced by a deep sense of peace. It was a vision of herself as she truly was, without the weight of expectation or fear. It was a vision of her soul, luminous and free. Tears welled up in Aveline's eyes as she gazed at the image, her heart swelling with a quiet joy. For so long, she had sought peace in the world outside herself, in her work, in her relationships, in the busyness of life. But here, at the Lake of Luminous Dreams, she understood that peace was not something to be found in the world, but something that had always been within her. She had simply forgotten how to listen. As the last rays of sunlight faded from the sky, Aveline rose from the water's edge, her heart lighter than it had been in years. She turned and began to walk back toward the village, the path ahead clear and easy now. The forest no longer felt like a place of mystery, but a place of quiet companionship, a reminder that the answers she sought were always within her reach. By the time she returned to the village, night had fallen, and the stars glittered brightly in the sky above. Aveline looked up at them, smiling softly. The Lake of Luminous Dreams was a place of magic, yes, but its true gift was not the glowing waters or the ancient trees. Its gift was the reminder that peace was always within reach, if only she remembered to be still and listen. And from that day on, whenever Aveline felt the stirrings of restlessness in her heart, she would close her eyes, breathe deeply, and listen to the quiet whisper of her soul, a whisper that had always been there, waiting for her to hear.